Jake Morrison cut the blue vegetables with steady hands. The knife moved in perfect lines across the cutting board. Each piece was the same size. Each cut was clean. He had been doing this job for 3 years now. His hands never shook anymore. The kitchen was huge. It had to be. The space station called Harmony Point held visitors from 7 different worlds. Each world had people who ate different things. Some needed crystals in their food. Others breathed their meals like gas. Some ate things that would kill humans. Jake had learned to cook for all of them. The morning shift was quiet. Jake liked it that way. He could hear the hum of the station's engines. He could hear the air moving through the vents. But mostly he heard nothing. That was how he wanted it. He picked up a red fruit from another world. It looked like an apple but tasted like metal. The Vorthak people loved these fruits. They said it reminded them of home. Jake sliced it thin. The juice was silver-colored. It stained his cutting board, but he did not mind. "Good morning, Jake," said a voice behind him. Jake did not turn around. He knew who it was. Ambassador HFY from the Andromedan worlds. The tall blue alien came to the kitchen every morning. He liked to watch Jake work. "Morning, Ambassador," Jake said. He kept cutting the red fruit. "You are very calm today," HFY said. His voice had a musical sound to it. All Andromedans spoke that way. "Most humans I know are more excited about things." Jake finished with the fruit. He put the pieces in a silver bowl. "I like calm," he said. HFY moved closer. His forearms moved in slow patterns. It was how his people showed they were thinking. "You have been here 3 years. In all that time I have never seen you angry. Never seen you upset. This is unusual for humans." Jake picked up another vegetable. This one was purple and had spikes. It came from the mining worlds. The Tellurian people ate these for breakfast. "Maybe I'm just a quiet person," Jake said. "Perhaps," HFY said, but his tone said he did not believe it. Jake started cutting the spiky vegetable. His knife moved around the spikes without touching them. If he cut a spike by mistake, the whole vegetable would turn poison. He had learned that the hard way in his first month. A Tellurian diplomat had gotten very sick. Jake had not made that mistake again. "The morning news feeds are talking about trouble," HFY said. He was watching Jake's hands. "The Tellurian mining worlds and the Syndicate are fighting again, about trade routes." Jake's knife did not pause. "Not my problem," he said. "No," HFY agreed. "You just cook. You feed people. You do not fight wars." Something in the way the ambassador said it made Jake look up. HFY was staring at him with his large green eyes. Those eyes seemed to see too much. "Is there something you want to tell me, Ambassador?" Jake asked. "No," HFY said. "But perhaps there is something you want to tell me." Jake went back to his cutting. "I cook food, that's all." HFY stayed quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I will see you at lunch, Jake Morrison." He left the kitchen. Jake finished the purple vegetable. He put the pieces in another bowl. His hands were still steady. But something felt different now. The ambassador's words had stirred something up inside him, something he had been trying to keep buried. The kitchen door opened again. This time it was Lisa Park, the chief engineer. She was young and smart and always in a hurry. She came to get coffee before her shift started. "Morning, Jake," she said. She went to the coffee machine. "Morning, Lisa. Did you hear about the meeting last night?" she asked. She filled her cup with black coffee. "What meeting?" "The emergency session. All the ambassadors stayed up until 3 in the morning. Security Chief Walsh was there too, and Ambassador Chen Lu looked really worried." Jake picked up a new ingredient. It was a green cube that smelled like flowers. The Krillian people used it like humans used salt. Worried about what? Nobody's saying. But the communication arrays were working overtime. Lots of messages going back to Earth. Lots of coded transmissions. Jake started grating the green cube. Fine powder fell into a small bowl. "Sounds like politics. Not my area." Lisa sipped her coffee. She watched him work. You know, I've been wondering about something. What's that? Your knife work. It's really good, like military good. My brother was in the Navy and he said they train cooks to cut things fast and perfect, in case they have to work in combat zones. Jake's hand stopped moving for just a second. Then he started grating again. I just practiced a lot. And your hands, Lisa continued. They're really steady. Even when the station shakes during engine tests, your hands don't move. That's not normal. I've always had steady hands. Lisa finished her coffee. She put the cup in the cleaning unit. Okay, but if you ever want to talk about stuff, I'm a good listener. Sometimes it helps to talk about the past. She left the kitchen. Jake was alone again. He put down the grater. He looked at his hands. Lisa was right. They were too steady, too controlled. He had trained them to be that way. Back when steady hands meant the difference between life and death. Back when he held different tools that were not for cooking. Jake picked up the next ingredient. It was a white root from the ice worlds. It had to be sliced paper thin or it would be too tough to eat. He started cutting. Each slice was perfect. Each cut was exact. He had learned to cut like this on a warship, the FSS Vengeance. He had been the captain of that ship, Captain Jake Morrison. The name used to mean something in the fleet. It used to make enemy ships turn and run. But that was before the battle at Kepler Station, before he lost his ship and his crew, before the guilt drove him away from everything he had been. Now he was just Jake Morrison, the cook. He made food for diplomats and aliens. He kept his head down. He stayed out of trouble. He did not think about the past, but sometimes the past found ways to remind him it was still there. Jake finished cutting the white root. He put the thin slices in ice water. They would stay fresh that way until lunchtime. He moved to the next task, always another task, always something to keep his hands busy and his mind quiet. The kitchen door opened one more time. Security Chief Danny Walsh came in. He was a big man with tired eyes. He looked like he had not slept much. "Jake," he said, "I need to ask you something." "Sure. If something bad happened on this station, if we were in real danger, could we count on you?" Jake looked at Walsh. The security chief was serious, more serious than Jake had ever seen him. "What kind of danger?" Jake asked. "The kind where being just a cook might not be enough." Jake went back to his prep work. He picked up a yellow fruit and started peeling it. "I'm just a cook, Danny. That's all I am now." Walsh watched him for a moment. Then he nodded. "Right. Just a cook." He turned to leave. At the door, he stopped. "But if that changes, if you remember being something else, we'll be here." Walsh left. Jake was alone with his thoughts and his ingredients and the quiet hum of the station around him. He finished peeling the yellow fruit. His hands were still steady. But deep inside, something was starting to wake up. Something he had been trying to keep asleep for 3 long years. The fire in his eyes had never really gone out. It had just been waiting. The Feast of Convergence happened once every year. All 7 alien races came together to eat and talk and pretend they liked each other. Jake had been preparing for weeks. 7 different main courses, 21 side dishes, 12 different types of drinks. Some of the drinks could kill humans just from the smell. Jake stood in his kitchen putting the final touches on the feast. Everything had to be perfect. The Krillian crystal cakes were cooling in special freezers. The Vorthak gas soups were bubbling in sealed containers. The Tellurian rock salads were arranged on metal plates. The dining hall was full of important people. Ambassadors, trade ministers, military advisors. They all wore their best clothes and fake smiles. Jake watched them through the service window as his staff carried out the food. Ambassador Chen Lu from Earth was talking to the Krillian trade minister. They were both laughing, but their eyes were cold. Jake had seen that look before. It was the look people got when they were planning something bad. "Jake," called Maria Santos, one of his servers. "The Andromedan table wants more of the blue sauce. Coming up," Jake said. He ladled the thick blue sauce into a serving bowl. The sauce was made from crushed moonflowers and tasted like cinnamon. Ambassador HFY loved it. Jake carried the bowl to the dining hall himself. As he set it down, He heard part of a conversation at the next table. Two Krillian attachés were speaking in low voices. "The human fleet positions are confirmed," one said. "Good," said the other. "The strike must happen before they can adapt their defenses." Jake kept his face blank as he walked back to the kitchen. But inside his mind was racing. Fleet positions, strike. The words meant trouble, big trouble. He went back to work but kept listening. More fragments of conversation drifted to him as he supervised the serving. "Earth suspects nothing. The evidence is planted perfectly. Once we destroy this station, they will have to respond." Jake's hand stayed steady as he plated the dessert course. But his military training was kicking in. Someone was planning an attack. Someone was setting up Earth to take the blame, and this station was the target. The lights flickered. For just a second, everything went dark. Then the emergency power kicked in, and the lights came back on. But they were dimmer now. Red warning lights started flashing in the corners of the room. "What was that?" someone asked. Before anyone could answer, the station's communication system crackled to life. Ambassador Chen Lu's voice filled the dining hall. "Attention all station personnel. We have multiple ships approaching, all diplomatic. Guests, please remain calm while we assess the situation." Through the large windows of the dining hall, Jake could see space, and space was full of ships. Huge crystalline vessels that sparkled like deadly jewels. Krillian battlecruisers, a whole fleet of them. The Krillian delegates in the dining hall did not look surprised. They looked ready. Chen Lu's voice came over the speakers again. This time he sounded scared. "All human personnel report to emergency stations. All non-human personnel prepare for immediate evacuation." Jake knew what that meant. The Krillians were here for the humans. Everyone else would be allowed to leave safely. The station shook. A deep rumbling sound echoed through the halls. The first weapons blast had hit them. Panic broke out in the dining hall. Aliens ran for the exits. The Krillian delegates were escorted toward the docking bays by their security teams. But the humans were trapped. Jake could see Chen Lu and his staff in the control room through a window. They were trying to coordinate some kind of response. Another blast hit the station. Stronger this time. The lights went out completely for 3 seconds before coming back on. Jake stood in his kitchen watching his careful work fall apart. Plates crashed to the floor. Hot soup spilled everywhere. 3 years of peaceful cooking were ending in violence and chaos. Maria Santos ran into the kitchen. Her face was white with fear. "Jake, what do we do?" "Get to the emergency shelters," Jake told her. "Take the rest of the kitchen staff. Go now." "What about you?" Jake looked around his kitchen one more time, at the knives hanging on their magnetic strips, at the prep stations where he had spent so many quiet hours, at the service window where he had watched diplomats lie to each other with smiles on their faces. "I'll be along," he said. Maria and the others ran toward the emergency shelters. Jake was alone in his kitchen as the station shook with another weapons blast. He walked to the service window and looked out at the dining hall. It was empty now except for broken dishes and spilled food. Through the main windows he could see the Krillian fleet moving into attack formation. They were not trying to disable the station. They were trying to destroy it. Jake counted the ships: 23 heavy cruisers, 41 destroyers, dozens of smaller attack ships. It was enough firepower to crack a moon in half. The communication system crackled again. This time it was a Krillian voice speaking in accented English. "Humans of Harmony Point, you are accused of planning aggressive actions against Krillian mining colonies. We have evidence of your military buildup. This station will be destroyed as a warning to your government. You have 15 minutes to evacuate." Jake almost laughed. 15 minutes. Like that was enough time to get 43 people off a station this size. And even if they could, he had seen what happened to the escape pods. They were being targeted and destroyed as soon as they launched. The Krillians were not here to send a warning. They were here to start a war, and they planned to blame Earth for it. Jake walked back into his kitchen. He opened the drawer where he kept his best knives. The steel blades gleamed under the emergency lights. Good knives, sharp knives, but not the tools he needed right now. He thought about his crew on the Vengeance. Good people who had trusted him to bring them home. He had failed them at Kepler Station, let them die while he lived. The guilt had driven him to this quiet life where no one counted on him for anything more important than making dinner, but now people were counting on him again. 43 humans trapped on a dying station. 43 people who would die unless someone did something. Jake took off his cook's apron. Underneath, he was wearing the same white uniform he always wore. But now it felt different. Now it felt like the uniform of someone who had work to do. The station shook with another blast. This one was strong enough to crack the kitchen windows. Jake could hear the sound of metal tearing somewhere in the distance. He walked to the emergency panel on the kitchen wall. The panel that had always been there but that he had never paid attention to. His fingers found the hidden catch that opened it. Inside were things that did not belong on a diplomatic station. Military communication equipment, tactical displays, authorization codes for weapon systems that were supposed to not exist. Jake smiled for the first time in 3 years. It was not a nice smile. Harmony Point had started life as a military outpost. Before it became a diplomatic station, it had been a fortress guarding the border between human and alien space. The military equipment was still here, hidden, but not gone. Jake activated the emergency command protocols. Screens came to life showing him things he had not seen in years. Ship positions, weapons status, shield strength, the familiar displays of war. The station had been gutted and rebuilt for diplomacy, but the bones of the old fortress were still there, waiting for someone who knew how to use them. Jake's hands moved across the controls with the skill of long practice. 3 years of cutting vegetables had kept his fingers nimble. But more than that, he remembered how to do this. How to fight. How to turn a desperate situation into something his enemies would regret. The communication system crackled one more time. Ambassador Chen Lu's voice was tight with fear. "All personnel, this is an emergency. We are being destroyed. May God help us all." Jake picked up the communication handset. His voice was calm when he spoke. Steady. Like a man who had found his purpose again. "Ambassador Chen Lu, this is Captain Morrison. I'm taking command of station defenses. Get all personnel to the central core, maximum armor protection, and tell everyone to hold on tight." There was silence on the channel. Then Chen Lu's voice came back, confused but hopeful. "Captain Morrison? Jake, what are you talking about?" "Sir," Jake said, "I'm talking about showing these crystal-headed bastards what happens when they pick a fight with humans." The fire in Jake's eyes blazed to life as Captain Morrison awakened from his long sleep. The cook was gone, the warrior had returned. Jake moved through the station corridors with purpose. 3 years of carrying food trays had taught him every shortcut and hidden passage. 3 years of managing kitchen schedules had kept his sense of timing sharp. But now he was using those skills for something different. The emergency lighting cast red shadows on the walls. Alarms were ringing everywhere. Through the hull, he could hear the sound of the Krillian ships moving into bombardment position. They thought they had all the time in the world. They thought they were attacking a helpless target. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Jake reached the main command center. The door was locked, but he knew the override codes. Every military station had the same basic systems. Some things never changed. Inside, he found chaos. Ambassador Chen Lu was trying to coordinate evacuations. Security Chief Danny Walsh was shouting orders into a communication headset. Engineer Lisa Park was frantically working at a damage control station. Nobody was in charge. Nobody knew what to do. "Ambassador," Jake said quietly. Chen Lu spun around. His face was covered in sweat and his eyes were wide with panic. "Morrison, what are you doing here? You should be in the emergency shelters." "Sir, we need to talk." "Not now. We're trying to save lives here. The escape pods are being destroyed. We're trapped. We need a miracle." Jake stepped closer. When he spoke, his voice had a different quality. Calm, controlled. The voice of someone who had been in bad situations before and lived through them. "Ambassador, I'm Captain Jake Morrison, formerly of the Earth Navy destroyer Vengeance, and I'm here to give you that miracle." The command center went quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing and stared at him. Danny Walsh was the first to speak. Morrison, wait, you're the ghost of Kepler Station? The captain who held off 3 raider fleets with a half-dead ship? Jake nodded. That's me. Though I'd rather not talk about Kepler right now. We have more immediate problems. Chen Lu shook his head. Even if that's true, this isn't a warship. This is a diplomatic station. We don't have weapons. We don't have trained crew. We're civilians. No, sir, Jake said firmly. We're humans. And there's a big difference. He walked to the main tactical display. His fingers moved across the controls like he had been using them yesterday instead of 3 years ago. The screen lit up with information that made everyone in the room gasp. Harmony Point wasn't always a diplomatic station, Jake explained. 20 years ago, this was Military Outpost Sentinel, a fortress designed to guard the border. When it was converted for diplomatic use, they gutted most of the military systems. But they didn't remove them. They just shut them down and hid them. Lisa Park leaned over his shoulder, staring at the display. Those power readings? I always wondered why the energy grid was so robust for a civilian station. Because underneath all the fancy diplomatic upgrades, this place is still a fortress, Jake said. Shield generators rated for capital ship bombardment. Weapon systems that can punch through heavy armor. Automated defense systems. The works. Danny Walsh joined them at the display. But even if all that's true, we don't have the people to run military systems. We're not soldiers. Jake turned to face the room. His eyes had changed. They burned with quiet intensity that made everyone take a step back. You're right. You're not soldiers, but you're human beings. And when humans are backed into a corner, we do something that no other species in the galaxy can do. We adapt, we improvise. We refuse to give up. The station shook with another Krillian blast. Closer this time. The main shields were failing under the bombardment. What do you need? Chen Lu asked. Time, Jake said. And trust. Lisa, I need you to restore power to the military grid. The authorization codes are in the system under emergency protocols. Danny, get our people organized. Damage control teams, communication relays, whatever we can manage. What about the Krillians? Walsh asked. Jake smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Leave them to me. They think they're attacking a space station. They're about to find out they picked a fight with a human fortress. Lisa was already working at her station, her fingers flying over the controls. Power coupling restored to sections 7 through 12. Military grid is coming online. Jake moved to the weapons control station. It had been disguised as an environmental monitoring system, but the real controls were hidden underneath. He pulled up the tactical overview of the Krillian fleet. 23 heavy cruisers, 41 destroyers, dozens of smaller ships, all arranged in a classic bombardment formation. Perfect for destroying a stationary target, terrible for defending against a coordinated counterattack. They're not expecting resistance, Jake observed. Look at their positioning. Sloppy, overconfident. They think this is target practice. Danny Walsh was coordinating the civilian staff over the communication system. All personnel to central core sections. Emergency bulkheads are sealing. We've got about 40 people accounted for. Good, Jake said. Lisa, what's the status on the main shields? Failing fast. Maybe 5 more minutes before they collapse completely. Perfect timing, Jake said. He activated the hidden weapon systems. All around the station, concealed ports began to open. Plasma cannons extended from what had looked like communication arrays. Missile launchers emerged from decorative sections of the hull. Chen Lu stared at the display in amazement. How did we not know about this? Because it was classified above your clearance level, Jake replied. The military never fully trusted having a station this close to alien space without proper defenses. They just hid them better than usual. The Krillian fleet was moving into final attack position. Their crystal ships glowed with charging weapons. In a few minutes, they would unleash enough firepower to crack the station open like an egg. Jake activated the internal communication system. His voice echoed through every corridor and room on the station. Attention all personnel. This is Captain Morrison. I know you're scared. I know this looks hopeless. But I want you to remember something. You're humans. Your species conquered a planet full of predators with nothing but sharp rocks and stubborn determination. You built ships that could cross between stars. You've survived ice ages and wars and disasters that would have destroyed any other species. The station shook with another blast. Weaker this time. The Krillians were having trouble maintaining formation in the debris field around the station. These aliens think they can intimidate us. They think they can murder us and blame us for starting a war. They picked the wrong species to mess with. Today we show them what humans do when someone threatens our home. Jake closed the channel and turned back to the tactical display. The Krillian ships were almost in position. But they had made a critical error. They were bunched too close together for maximum firepower. That made them vulnerable to the kind of attack Jake was planning. Lisa, I need you to reroute all available power to the weapons grid. Cut life support to everything except the core sections. That's a lot of power, she said, but it'll only last about 20 minutes. That's 19 minutes longer than I need, Jake replied. He began targeting the Krillian formation. Not the ships themselves, that would be hopeless. But the space around them. The debris field. The abandoned cargo containers that had been floating near the station for months. What are you doing? Chen-Lu asked. Cooking, Jake said with a cold smile. I'm about to serve these crystal heads a meal they'll never forget. His fingers danced across the targeting controls. Each shot had to be precise. Each target had to be perfect. It was like preparing a 7-course meal for alien diplomats. Except this time the ingredients were high explosives and the diners were enemy warships. Weapons ready, Lisa reported. All personnel secured in core sections, Danny added. Jake looked at the tactical display one more time. The Krillian ships were in perfect position, confident, unsuspecting, ready to learn a very hard lesson about underestimating humans. Fire, he said quietly. The station's hidden weapons opened up all at once, not at the Krillian ships, but at the debris field around them. Cargo containers exploded. Abandoned satellites disintegrated, space filled with expanding clouds of superheated metal and plasma. The Krillian fleet found itself flying blind through a maze of explosions and debris. Their sensors, designed for clean space combat, couldn't track targets through the chaos. Ships began colliding with each other. Their perfect formation collapsed into confusion. Now, Jake said, we show them what happens when you pick a fight with angry humans. The real weapons, the ones designed to kill warships, emerged from their hiding places. Plasma cannons that could melt through armor, missile launchers loaded with antimatter warheads, point defense systems that could track and destroy incoming threats. Harmony Point had shed its peaceful disguise. The fortress had awakened, and Captain Jake Morrison was home. The transformation of Harmony Point happened fast. What had been a peaceful diplomatic station became a weapon of war in minutes. Jake coordinated the change like a master chef preparing a complex meal, but this time the ingredients were plasma cannons and the recipe was survival. Lisa, I need full power to the shield generators, Jake called out. His hands moved across the tactical controls with practiced ease. Reroute everything from the diplomatic quarters. We won't be needing those anymore. Engineer Lisa Park worked frantically at her station. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she bypassed safety systems and pushed the station's power grid beyond its normal limits. Shields at 60% and climbing. But Jake, if we keep this up, we'll burn out the main generators. We just need them to hold long enough, Jake replied. He was studying the Krillian fleet formation on his display. The enemy ships were still struggling through the debris field he had created. Their perfect attack formation had become a confused mess of colliding vessels and tangled flight paths. Security Chief Danny Walsh coordinated the civilian staff from another console. His voice was calm but urgent as he spoke into his headset. All damage control teams to stations. Engineering crews report to section chiefs. If you don't know what to do, find someone who does and help them. Ambassador Chen-Lu stood behind Jake, watching the tactical display with amazement and growing hope. How many weapons does this station have? More than enough, Jake answered. He highlighted different sections of the station on his screen. 12 heavy plasma cannons, 36 missile tubes, point defense arrays, and something special I've been saving for the right moment. What do you mean, special? Jake's smile was cold. This station was designed to guard the border against alien invasion. The military didn't just hide standard weapons here. They left us something that could stop an entire fleet. The Krillian ships were starting to recover from the chaos. Their formation was broken, but they still had overwhelming numbers. Jake counted 47 vessels still combat capable. Even damaged, that was enough firepower to destroy the station 10 times over. They're regrouping, Danny Walsh reported. Looks like they're trying to form up for another attack run. Let them come, Jake said. Lisa, what's the status on the automated defense grid? Lisa's fingers flew across her controls. Coming online now. The drones are launching. Hidden bays all around the station opened up. Small, fast attack drones poured out like angry insects. Each drone was armed with high explosive charges and guided by military-grade targeting systems. They had been sleeping in the station's hull for 20 years, waiting for someone to wake them up. Jake programmed their attack pattern personally. Not random strikes, but coordinated strikes designed to cause maximum confusion and damage. The drones would attach themselves to Krillian ships like parasites, then detonate their charges at the most vulnerable points. 36 drones away, Lisa reported. Time to target, 43 seconds. Jake watched the tactical display as the tiny weapons raced toward the enemy fleet. The Krillians were trying to target them with point defense systems, but the drones were too small and too fast. Most of them slipped through the defensive fire. Impact in 10 seconds, Jake announced. All hands brace for secondary explosions. The drones reached their targets. Flashes of light erupted across the Krillian formation as the small charges detonated against ship hulls. Each explosion was tiny compared to the massive alien vessels, but they were perfectly placed. Shield generators overloaded. Weapon systems sparked and went dark. Engine nacelles cracked and began venting plasma. Damage assessment, Jake called out. Danny Walsh was monitoring enemy communications, picking up multiple distress signals. Looks like we disabled at least 12 ships, maybe more. Good, Jake said. But they still have enough firepower to kill us. Time for the main course. He activated the station's primary weapons. The heavy plasma cannons emerged from hidden compartments, their massive barrels glowing with contained energy. The missile tubes loaded antimatter warheads that could crack open a moon. All weapons charged and ready, Lisa reported. Jake studied the enemy formation one more time. The Krillians had finally managed to regroup, but they were no longer in their perfect bombardment pattern. They were spread out, cautious, trying to figure out what kind of trap they had flown into. That caution would be their downfall. Fire pattern Alpha, Jake ordered. The station's weapons opened up in a coordinated barrage. Plasma beams lanced out across space, their blue-white energy cutting through the darkness. Antimatter missiles streaked toward their targets, leaving trails of fire behind them. But Jake wasn't targeting the enemy ships directly. Instead, he aimed for the space between them, creating a wall of explosions and energy that forced the Krillian fleet to choose between flying through certain death or breaking formation again. Most chose to break formation. They're scattering, Danny Walsh reported with excitement. The fleet is breaking up. Not yet, Jake said grimly. This is just the opening move. The Krillian admiral was smarter than Jake had hoped. Instead of panicking, the enemy commander was adapting to the situation. The scattered ships began forming smaller groups, making them harder to target with area effect weapons. Jake had expected this. He activated the next part of his plan. Lisa, bring the heavy guns online. All of them. Hidden weapon systems all around the station revealed themselves. What had looked like communication arrays were actually plasma artillery. What had seemed like decorative hull sections opened up to reveal missile launchers. The peaceful diplomatic station shed its disguise completely. Ambassador Chen Lu stared at the displays in shock. My God, how much firepower does this place have? Enough to fight a war, Jake replied. Which is exactly what we're doing. The Krillian fleet had recovered from their initial surprise. They were advancing again, this time in smaller groups that could support each other. Their weapons were charging, preparing for a coordinated strike that would overwhelm the station's defenses. Jake counted down the seconds until they reached optimal firing range. His fingers hovered over the weapons controls, ready to unleash everything the station had. Jake, Lisa said quietly, even with all these weapons, we're still outnumbered 20-1. The math doesn't work. You're right, Jake agreed. If this were a fair fight, we'd already be dead. Then how do we win? Jake's eyes blazed with the fire that had made him a legend at Kepler Station. We don't fight fair. We fight like humans. He activated a system that had been hidden deeper than any of the others, a system so classified that only a handful of people in the entire human fleet knew it existed. What is that? Chen Lu asked, staring at the new display that had appeared. Insurance, Jake said. 20 years ago, when this station was built, the military was worried about exactly this kind of situation. A massive alien fleet attacking our border defenses. So they built something special into this station, something that could even the odds no matter how bad things got. The system finished initializing. Jake's finger moved to the activation switch. What does it do? Danny Walsh asked. Jake smiled. It was the smile of a man who had just realized he held a winning hand in a game where everyone thought he was beaten. It turns this station into the biggest bomb in human space. The room went silent except for the hum of weapons charging and the distant sound of enemy ships moving into attack position. "You're talking about self-destruct," Chen-Lu said. "No," Jake replied. "I'm talking about something much better. I'm talking about turning this entire station into a weapon that will destroy everything within 100,000 kilometers, including us if we don't time this exactly right." Lisa Park looked at him with wide eyes. "That's insane." "No," Jake said quietly. "That's human." Jake's plan unfolded like a perfectly timed meal service. Every element had to come together at exactly the right moment, or everything would fall apart. But this time failure meant death for everyone on the station. "Lisa, I need you to start the reactor overload sequence," Jake said calmly. "But keep it contained for now. We're going to use controlled releases." Engineer Lisa Park stared at him. "You want me to turn our reactor into a bomb?"
Not a bomb.
"A kitchen burner. We're going to cook these Krillians slowly." Jake's fingers moved across the tactical display, highlighting different sections of space around the station. "The enemy fleet is positioned perfectly. They think they have us trapped, but they've actually trapped themselves." The Krillian ships were moving into final attack position, 47 vessels arranged in a deadly sphere around Harmony Point. Their crystal hulls gleamed in the starlight as their weapons charged for the killing blow. Admiral Kreshtal's voice crackled over the communication system. "Humans of Harmony Point, you have fought bravely, but your resistance is pointless. Surrender now and we will make your deaths quick." Jake picked up the communication handset. When he spoke, his voice was steady and cold.
Admiral Kreshtal.
"This is Captain Jake Morrison. I have a counter-proposal." "You are in no position to make proposals, human." "Actually, I am. You see, you've made a very serious mistake. You thought you were attacking a diplomatic station. You're actually about to become dinner." There was silence on the channel. Then Kreshtal's voice came back, angry and confused. "What are you talking about?" "I'm a cook, Admiral, and I've just prepared a very special meal for you and your fleet. The main ingredient is antimatter. The seasoning is superheated plasma, and the presentation is going to be spectacular." Jake cut the communication and turned back to his crew. "Lisa, begin venting plasma from the secondary reactors. Low pressure, wide dispersal. I want a cloud around the entire station. That's going to look like we're losing power," she said. "Exactly. Danny, start broadcasting distress signals. Make it sound like our systems are failing." Security Chief Danny Walsh nodded and began sending fake emergency transmissions. To the Krillian fleet, it would look like the station was finally succumbing to battle damage. The plasma venting began. Glowing gas poured from vents all around the station's hull, forming a slowly expanding cloud. To sensors, it looked like catastrophic system failures. In reality, it was the first ingredient in Jake's recipe for victory. "The Krillians are taking the bait," Danny reported. "They're moving closer. Looks like they want to finish us off before we explode on our own." "Perfect," Jake said. "How close are they?" "Closest ships are at 15,000 kilometers in closing." Jake watched the tactical display as the enemy fleet tightened their formation around the station. They thought they were moving in for the kill. They had no idea they were flying into a trap that had taken 20 years to prepare. "Lisa, what's the status on the reactor overload?" "Ready when you are." "But Jake, once I trigger this, we'll have maybe 60 seconds before the station tears itself apart." "That's 50 seconds more than I need," Jake replied. "Ambassador Chen-Lu, get on the communication system. I want you to contact Earth Command. Tell them what really happened here. Tell them the Krillians started this war with lies and murder." Chen-Lu moved to the communication station. "What about us? Are we going to survive this?" Jake smiled. It was a different smile now. Not cold or angry, but confident. "Ambassador, I've been cooking for 3 years. I've never served a bad meal yet." The Krillian fleet was almost in position. The closest ships were now only 10,000 kilometers away. Their weapons were fully charged and ready to fire. Jake could see the energy building in their crystal hulls. "All ships," came Admiral Kreshtal's voice over the enemy communication channel. "Prepare for final bombardment. Destroy the station completely. Now," Jake said quietly. Lisa triggered the reactor overload. Deep in the station's core, carefully controlled fusion reactions began spinning out of control. But instead of exploding randomly, The energy was channeled through hidden conduits throughout the station's structure. The plasma cloud around the station suddenly ignited. What had looked like harmless engine exhaust became a sphere of superheated gas, hot enough to melt starship armor. The Krillian ships found themselves flying through a furnace, but that was just the appetizer. Phase 2, Jake announced. Hidden throughout the plasma cloud were thousands of micromines. Tiny devices that had been floating in the station's debris field for months disguised as space junk. When the plasma ignited, it triggered the mines in a carefully orchestrated chain reaction. Explosions rippled through the Krillian formation like fireworks, not big enough to destroy the massive alien ships, but more than enough to overwhelm their shields and disable their weapon systems. Direct hits on multiple targets, Danny Walsh reported with excitement. Their fleet is in chaos. And now for the main course, Jake said. He activated the final system. The one that had been hidden deepest of all. Deep in the station's core, a device that had been waiting 20 years for this moment came to life. It was called a stellar compression generator. A weapon so powerful that its very existence was classified beyond top secret. It could create a miniature star for exactly 30 seconds before burning itself out. 30 seconds of nuclear fire hot enough to sterilize everything within 100,000 kilometers. Jake, Lisa said, her voice tight with fear. That thing will kill us too. Only if we're still here when it goes off, Jake replied. He was working frantically at the navigation controls. Lisa, I need every bit of power we have left routed to the station's maneuvering thrusters. Maneuvering thrusters? This station doesn't move. It does now. We're going to ride the compression wave like a surfer rides an ocean wave. The stellar compression generator reached critical mass. Space around Harmony Point began to distort as the artificial star prepared to ignite. The Krillian fleet, trapped in the plasma cloud and disabled by the mine explosions, could only watch in horror as they realized what was about to happen. All hands, hold on to something solid, Jake announced over the station's communication system. This is going to get rough. The generator triggered. For 30 seconds, a star blazed to life in the heart of the Krillian fleet. Nuclear fire washed over their ships, turning crystal hulls into vapor and proud warships into glowing debris. But Harmony Point was no longer where the Krillians thought it was. Jake had used the station's hidden maneuvering system to push it just far enough away to survive the artificial star's fury. The compression wave that destroyed the enemy fleet also accelerated the station away from the epicenter, like a leaf blown by a hurricane. When the fire died and space returned to normal, only one ship remained intact. Harmony Point drifted in the darkness, battered and scarred but alive. In the command center, Jake and his crew slowly picked themselves up from the floor where the acceleration had thrown them. Damage report, Jake called out. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, Lisa reported. Life support is stable. Main power is offline, but emergency systems are holding. Enemy contacts? Danny Walsh checked his sensors. Nothing, Jake, they're all gone. Every last one of them. Ambassador Chen Lu was already working at the communication station. I'm getting responses from Earth Command. They want a full report on what happened here. Jake looked around the command center, at Lisa Park, whose engineering skills had made victory possible, at Danny Walsh, who had kept their people organized and safe, at Chen Lu, who had trusted a cook to save them all. Tell Earth Command that the Krillian attack was unprovoked, Jake said. Tell them we have proof that they were planning to blame us for starting a war. And tell them that Harmony Point is still here, still operational and still ready to defend human space. Chen Lu nodded and began transmitting. Jake walked to the observation window and looked out at the stars. The debris field that had once been a Krillian battle fleet glittered in the distance like scattered diamonds. So what happens now? Lisa asked. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was a peaceful smile this time, the smile of a man who had found his way home. Now I go back to my kitchen, he said. The diplomatic quarters are wrecked, but the galley is still intact. And I imagine our guests are going to be very hungry when they wake up. Guests? The Krillian survivors. There are always survivors, Lisa. And they're going to need medical attention and food while we figure out what to do with them. Danny Walsh stared at him. You're going to cook for the people who just tried to kill us? I'm a cook, Jake said simply. That's what cooks do. We feed people. But as he walked toward the door, everyone in the room could see the truth. Jake Morrison was a cook, yes. But he was also something more. He was a guardian. A protector. A man who would stand between his people and any threat that dared to challenge them. The fire in his eyes had never been just for cooking. It was for defending everything he held dear. And that fire would never go out. 6 months later, Harmony Point had been rebuilt and was hosting diplomatic meetings again. But everyone who came there knew the story. They knew about the cook who had become a captain when his people needed him most.